Okay, hi everyone. My name's Livia. This is my project, and I created this interactive user interface map of the Boulders Trailhead cameras. So I've been collaborating with the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group over the summer and was doing a volunteer project for them. And they said it's really useful to have access to these trailhead cameras because they use them a lot to assess trail conditions or look if there's an ongoing rescue. Um, so I was looking to create a more useful tool for them. So yeah, my goal is a user interface that has all of these cameras from the OSMP Trailheads website. So these are compiled into this cameras.json file and then geolocated on a map. And then there's this pop-up with this embedded live stream, so you can see the trail conditions. And then I added this functionality where you can capture a video frame from the live feed and then generate this weather prediction using a weather classification models. So, for example, this is like a captured image, and passing it through the weather classification model will say it's snowy. I also implemented this functionality with All Trails images, so it scrapes these images from All Trails posting. But this takes a little bit longer because it requires more images. And then it's also a little bit noisier because some of the images are not super recent. So there's less confidence in those predictions. For the front end, I used React with Leaflet. So Leaflet is just so I can put the map on there. For the back end, I use a fast API. I was going to use Flask, but it seemed like Fast API was used more recently. And for that, I used Unicorn, which is just making this ASGI server, which is necessary for the Fast API. Then I also use the Redis cache. So this is storing the camera metadata in Redis so that when it's queried again, like I think it was within 30 minutes, just accesses Redis again. Then I use this PostGRE SQL database with the PostGIS extension. Right now, there's not that many cameras, but we're hoping to get more. And with that, it's super useful to access these through the SQL database. And also with the PostGIS extension, you can do these really useful spatial queries. So like if I ask for a point, or if I have a point, I can say, give me all cameras that are within 5 kilometers of this point. And this SQL database makes that possible. I don't have a functionality on the interface for that right now because I couldn't think of a good way to implement it, but this project is ongoing, so I'm hoping to do that at some point. And then I also used Docker containers for this. So for my architecture, the users interact with the web browser, and then the on the web browser, you can either access the main user interface, or with the correct authorization, you can access the admin interface. Um, So these are both on the front end. The main user interface embeds these live camera feeds. So those are external. So both of these front end can access the back end fast API, which handles all of the endpoints. So like cameras, whether you want to like get, delete, add, whatever. And the fast API can also access the Redis cache, so accessing any data that's been recently requested, like some camera metadata, and then can also query the database. So looking for specific cameras or specific camera URLs when you eventually have to capture that image is what we query the database for. So for debugging, I use a lot of like the Docker container logs. Um, and I had implemented with struct log to print informative statements in the console. And then I also use the browser console to debug more of the front end. So if you go like inspect and then console, that was telling me if I interacted in a certain way or had a certain request and it failed the specific debugging issue. I also use the Fast API documentation because you can access these docs, which show you all of the API endpoints. So like get cameras, or like add an admin user or something like that. At some point, I was also having an issue with the database queries. So I was working on the command line with the PSQL interface in order to assess what was going wrong there. Okay, so some lessons. I think what I did well is I had like pretty good separation of different components. Hopefully, this will be deployed for actual people to use. So I like have good separation of APIs and services, and then I also deploy these in different containers. So for example, the database is deployed in a different container. So if eventually this product is being used, I need to edit the database, I can do that without affecting some of the other infrastructure. And I also think I did a good job debugging with the logs. What I do differently or what I'm planning on doing in the future is I think I need to integrate message queues. Um, I haven't tried this out yet, but I am worried about when there's synchronous requests to do something more computationally expensive, like predict the trail conditions, um, then these requests might be blocked. I also want to add more tests for the endpoints, like authorization, and then scaling with demand, so adding multiple workers for doing this.
So this takes the camera metadata, which is on OSMP Boulder City's Trailhead website, and places the latitude longitude coordinates as markers on this map. For each point, you can click on the marker and it'll come up with this pop-up. This one's in Chautauqua. If there's multiple cameras at one location, you can toggle between views. So this one has two views, one in the front and one in the back of the Ranger Cottage. And then it has all of the camera metadata down here. I also implemented this feature where you can predict the trail conditions, so you can either use video or all trail. When you click use video, it takes a snapshot of the video at that point in time, runs it through a weather classification model, and then it outputs a prediction. So this one says snow or frosty with 89% confidence. I also implemented this all trails version, which I was starting to make a data set from the all trails images. I won't do that one now because it takes a bit longer, but that is still a work in progress. So you can also log in. I made myself an admin user. So I have these two panels here, the analytics panel, which is just about the users and how they interact with the interface. And then importantly, the admin panel allows you to edit the cameras. Eventually, an important functionality for this project will be to have these view shed, which is visualizing where the camera can see. I don't have that data yet, and I'm hoping to get it at some point. But what that will look like is you can input where the camera is pointing and the field of view. Just put the same. And then when you go to the map, it'll show you how far on like what angle that camera can see. So this is not completely accurate yet. I just made that up, but eventually I hope to have that functionality. So yeah, thank you for listening.